Hey guys, I, is that, okay. All right. Is that all I have to do to get applause? Just say hello? That's awesome, man. I feel like I've been a caged cheetah back in the background, back waiting over there, because I am so excited to share with you an idea tonight that I believe can really help you live empowered, live with calling, live without fear, to really understand the hidden program that's happening inside of you. But for those who don't know me, I'm Mike Foster. I'm an executive counselor. I work with individuals Monday through Friday, working through their pain and their trauma and their hurts, and really learning how to take that pain and turn it into a purpose, to turn those setbacks that they have faced in their lives and turn them into superpowers. And I love what I get to do. It is an honor to hold space and to talk about the most sacred parts of our stories. And what I want to share with you tonight is a concept that I believe will be both painful but hopeful. A concept that hopefully will hit you to the core and help turn on like 1,000 light bulbs for you. Because so often I think the enemy uses confusion and lies and shame and our brokenness and our past to keep us trapped, to keep us stuck, to put us on the sidelines. I was reading some interesting statistics this week about men, and let me just share some of them with you. They are not good, by the way, because I really do believe in unlike any other time in our history, that there is a real crisis right now within men and in our society. Let me just give you a couple stats. Men, compared to women, are twice as likely to overdose. Men, compared to women, are 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide. Men, compared to women, are 9 times more likely to be incarcerated. They did a recent survey. They asked men, how many friends do you have? And 1 out of 7 men said that they had 0. They also found that men, like you and me, are more prone to believing conspiracy theories and are more likely to be radicalized. Yeah, some of you are like, yeah, I kind of bought into a few of those the last couple of years. This is the most shocking one to me. They found that there are 7 million men in America right now, between the ages of 25 and 54, who do not work. What are they doing with their time? They are not volunteering at their church. They are not helping their parents. They are not mentoring or discipling like Alan talked about. You know what they're doing? Those 7 million men, they're playing Call of Duty while stoned. No joke. They found that each of these men are playing approximately 2,000 hours of Call of Duty every year, jacked up on pain meds. Men, I look at those stats and I look at that information and that data and I say, we have a gigantic problem. But we also serve a gigantic God, okay? And we also serve a God who's ready to move into gigantic problems and set us free. But here's the choice that we make tonight. Is are we going to be activated and take that step? Are we going to do something about it? Or are we simply going to be passive bystanders in our own lives and in the lives of each other? You know, I'm going to turn 52 next March, or this coming March 20th, by the way. I'm registered at Target if anybody's interested. And I was, every birthday comes along, and I just have to ask myself, like, oh my gosh, if I wasn't a middle-aged white man last year, I certainly am this year. And I feel like I'm creeping more closely to irrelevance the older I get. Because this is a youth culture. This is a culture that believes in the young and creative and the people who have hair that's all the same color. They're into that, right? And so here I am thinking I am becoming more irrelevant. And every year I feel like I give myself a choice. Mike, are you going to slip down into irrelevance? Are you going to kind of coast into retirement? Are you going to take the foot off the gas? Is this the year where you kind of, I don't know, give up a little? And every year I come to the conclusion, it's like, no freaking way. I am not going to live my life that way. We have an opportunity to level up. We have an opportunity to invite God's power and His wisdom into our lives and live lives that are totally radical. It doesn't mean that we're like screaming or weird or activists or anything like that, but radical in our purity, radical in our commitment to our brides, radical in our commitment to our faith, the radical in our commitment to loving the unlovable. That's what I want to be about. And it's like, I want to level up. I don't want to play Call of Duty. And nothing against Call of Duty. But there's too much work to be done in this society. There's too much work to be done in this world. There's too much opportunity to bring the love of Christ to the city that we can't sort of be hung up on all this stuff and all of these issues and all of our brokenness and all of our trauma to where the enemy takes us and he says, you just stand over here and watch life go by. I'm not living that way, and I invite you and I want to challenge you tonight, don't live that way either. Don't become part of those statistics that I listed earlier. And what I want to do right now is help you understand the power of leading yourself well. That the project and the energy and all of the focus doesn't have to start out there. It starts actually here with our own inner work, allowing God to transform this heart first before we go and try to transform anything else. See, men, the most important project that you will lead this year is yourself. And part of the problems that we see in our society and in our families, in our marriages, and with our kids is because we are not focusing on this project. We've gotten distracted. We've gotten distracted on money and our careers and maybe the size of our biceps. I don't know. Some of you are more committed to the gym than you are to your own inner transformation. And listen, I'm speaking to myself tonight. I have been hooked on things of this world that simply are not important. I get that you probably all have, if you have an iPhone, you get that weekly report of how much time you spent on your phone this week. I get that report, I'm like, oh my gosh, no way. No possible way it's 7 hours a day. No way is that right. But it's right. It's tracking. So men, as you think about leadership and as you think about your influence and you think about your impact, it starts with you. And the thing that's most important, I want to share with you a concept called the primal question. And it's a concept that I've been working on for the past 4 years. Over 6,000 hours of one-on-one interviews with people just like you. Understanding what makes them tick, what's going on in their insides, how is trauma and their childhood experiences, how is that driving how you show up today? I've done 22 group labs where we have experimented with these ideas, and I've got encyclopedias worth of research like covering my office, and I've taken all of this stuff over the past 4 years, and I've combined it and drilled it down into 7 simple core questions that everyone asks, and one of these questions that I'm going to unpack for you tonight drives your life. You see, the primal question that you have is the thing underneath the thing that drives everything. One of my favorite rides growing up as a kid was the motorboat cruise ride at Disneyland. Now, when I was young, I was like 8 years old. I'd stand in line with my parents, and I'd get behind the wheel of this boat, and I would be driving this boat on the Fantasyland Lagoon. And I'm like, wow, check me out. I'm an amazing captain of this boat. I'm navigating, underneath the monorail, and I'm not hitting any other boats, and I'm not heading into the submarine area. I am doing such a great job driving this little boat that I'm in. Excuse me. And a couple years later, when I was 10, I began to notice that some of the turning of my wheel wasn't quite lining up with where the boat was going. And so I'm like, what's going on here? This isn't quite making sense. And so I look over the side of the boat, and underneath the water, I see something that's absolutely shocking and devastating to me as a 10-year-old. Do you know what I saw? I saw a track. Gosh darn you, Walt Disney, how do you do that to a child? I was out there thinking that I was the captain of this boat, and the whole entire time, there was a track underneath the water. Controlling my destination. Controlling where I could go. Yes, I could make small, minor changes in where the boat was sort of heading, but ultimately, there was something underneath the water driving that boat. Friends, the primal question that you are asking is your track. And if you don't understand what that question is, and if you don't understand its power and influence over your life, then you're going to be like the 8-year-old Mike Foster thinking that he's in control of his lifeboat when really he's not. It's time to turn up the lights and blow away the fog. What is the primal question? The primal question is the hidden programming that influences every positive and negative decision that you make. The primal question is the core driver of your marriage and your parenting style and your leadership. And let me be very clear here. As we unpack these 7 questions, I want you to understand that it's not something to fix, but something to understand and to maximize in your life. And here's how it looks. Let me do a little doodle for you. All right, what should we do? Green or white? Let's go white. All right. Here's how it works. Very simple concept, but with profound implications in your life. All right, so you have your primal question, okay? And the primal question is imprinted in your childhood. Basically, it's a question that your caretakers or parents never answered for you. Or perhaps it just wasn't made clear in your family. And so now you carry this primal question into your adult life, and you keep asking it over and over and over again, subconsciously, of course, but it is the question that is driving your life. And here's what happens. When the question is answered with a yes, life is good, okay? You're feeling good. You're grounded. You are in control. You are happy, you are satisfied, you are joyful. But when you ask your primal question and the answer to that question comes back as a no, here's what happens. You go into what I call the scramble. And the scramble is all the dysfunctional things that you do to try to force the answer back to a yes, and then life can be good again. It's all of the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the performance, the codependency, the self-abandonment. It's all of these things that you do. It's the control. It's all of these rushing and scrambling and trying to force your primal question back to a yes so life can be good. And guys, when we live that way, we then are actually not in control of our own lives. When we allow something, some hidden program, some hidden question to dictate how you show up for your spouse and how you show up with your kids and what sort of themes drive your life, that is not the way to live. Self-leadership is what I'm trying to get you to buy into tonight. This idea where you are empowered, where you have
have the choice, where you practice emotional fitness, where you're not triggered left and right because of what somebody's doing on the highway or what something happens at work, where you show up in this healthy, grounded adult male who says, like, I can handle it. I've got the strength to show up into difficult situations and be my best self. The primal gift that is associated with the primal question is your relational superpower. And the reason why this is so important is because what happens is we take our primal question that drives our life and we put it over everybody else. And so you, because of your pain and because of your brokenness and because of the things that happen in your childhood, you have a supernatural gift. You have greatness sitting within you. And if I can get you aligned with that greatness, because here's what happens. You take your primal question, you put it over everybody else's head. And now what you do is you answer that primal question that you have, you answer it yes for everybody that you meet. So let's talk about this. 7 questions. And let me tell you, God answers every one of these questions with a big freaking yes, okay? And what he wants to do is take the question and turn it from a question into a statement, to have you live not from the primal question, but from a primal truth, where God says, I see your deepest emotional need, and I say yes to it. 1 John 5:15 says, and if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we asked of him. And so all you have to do is ask. Question number 1, if you have a pen and paper, I want you to write these questions. And my goal tonight is to have you to be able to answer which question is your question. What is the subconscious programming in your life that is driving your decisions and your choices and your triggers and your emotions? That's driving your ideas and your concepts about God and life. And here they are. Question number 1, am I safe? Am I safe? And this is just the need for physical and emotional safety. The core fear is feeling trapped or in potential danger. And your kryptonite, the thing that will set you off, is unpredictability or negative surprises. Now, this is my primal question. And it has been so helpful to understand this, because in my childhood imprint was this. When I was young, I was sexually abused for over a year by a family friend. And what was happening in that just 12-month course shaped who I was and how I saw the world, and it planted this question, am I safe, in Mike Foster's core. Not only was an adult abusing me, but then I went to my parents and told them what was going on, and we never talked about it again. And so I had one adult that was abusing me, 2 adults that weren't protecting me. And so the only question that I had in my childhood and carried through my adult life is Mike Foster safe? Is he protected? And what I've done is run every single decision, idea, choice that I have made in my life through the safety filter. Here, I'll give you a real simple one. I don't do anything dangerous, okay? I don't ski. I don't ride horses. I am the safest person you will meet because I am taking control of my safety. If you're interested in understanding anything about risk and risk management, come see me because I've oriented my entire life around this topic. But here's the good news. This is what God does. He takes that brokenness and he takes that abuse and he takes that primal question of am I safe, and he gives me a superpower. You know what I do? Again, my primal gift, I take am I safe, I put it over all of your heads. And when I interact with you, when I show up with you, you're going to tell me stuff. Why? Because you feel safe with me. And I didn't go to college for that. I didn't get training on that. People just tell me stuff. I'll meet strangers off the street. Well, talking for 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden they're pouring out their guts to me. I don't know why, but I actually do know why. Because they feel safe and secure and protected when they're in my presence. And so that's why I'm a great therapist. That's why I'm a great counselor. Because people tell me stuff because I am answering their safety question. That's the primal gift. So not only do I have to manage the safety question, my physical and emotional needs for safety, but I also have a gift that I need to deploy out into the world and look for ways to do that. So question number one, am I safe? Question number two, am I secure? And this is just the need for financial and relational security. The core fear is not having enough money or relational resources to protect themselves. And their kryptonite is financial instability. I have a client who flies down on his private jet from Las Vegas. He flies into the airport. It doesn't take Delta. It doesn't take Southwest. He takes a $30 million private jet, lands at the local airport. I pick him up. We go over to my house, and we meet for half a day. His primal question is, am I secure? See, he grew up in a home that was filled with tons of financial instability. His parents argued about bills. There was never enough at the end of the day. And so he has taken control of his own primal question by being super successful. He's worth over $500 million. And we're sitting there and we're talking, and he's struggling with this idea of transitioning from CEO, founder of his company, to going 50% time, half time. He works probably 70, 80 hours a week right now. He's a freaking workaholic. He drives harder than any man I've ever known. What is driving him? Money. And I looked at him, I said, Steve, you're worth $500 million. You have enough. You have enough money, but it doesn't matter what the number is, because inside of Steve is a question that he keeps asking, is, am I secure? Number three, third primal question, am I loved? And this is just the need to feel known, seen, and emotionally attached. Core fear is being dismissed, unheard, and unseen. And the kryptonite is indifference. My wife's primal question is, am I loved? And once I understood that as her husband, I could orient my life to her in a very different way. You see, one of my biggest things that I do as a man, and I know none of you are guilty of this, is I often talk over my wife. I know. But anytime that I talk over my wife, she feels unloved. And so we talk, in our marriage, we talk about this all the time. She knows about my need for safety. I know about her need for love. And what we're doing is trying to answer each other's primal question with a yes. See, because she grew up in a home where her mom always talked over her. She was the fourth child, kind of the leftover in many ways. Her parents were kind of like, this is the fourth kid. I want to get on to my life. And Jennifer, good luck, whatever you're doing. Here's the key to the house. And we're doing our careers. We're doing our lives. And so she wondered, as a child, was she loved? By the way, I believe this with all of my heart, and I want you to really listen to this. It is fundamentally impossible to have a relationship with someone who keeps answering your primal question with a no. So men, I'm asking you, you may not understand your primal question tonight, but you darn sure better understand your spouse's. Because if you keep answering her primal question with a no, your marriage is not going to work. That's how powerful this is. It's also a powerful opportunity to create connection and collaboration, to remove away all the drama and the nonsense, and we start talking about the most important things in our life, our highest emotional need. My need for safety, her need for love. It is skyrocketed our marriage, orienting around this concept. Question number four, am I wanted? Am I wanted? And this is just the need to feel accepted, pursued, and to belong. The core fear of being excluded or left out, in the way that I blow you up emotionally is to reject you. How many of you are familiar with Bob Goff? Bob Goff's a good friend of mine. He's a New York Times bestselling author. Well, Bob Goff's primal question is, am I wanted? Bob Goff, again, taking his question and putting it over everybody else, is the most inclusive person I have ever met. The only time I see Bob cry is when people leave his house or leave a conference or he has to go away. Bob's whole orientation is around making others feel wanted, but he's also the only guy that I know who put his cell phone number in the back of his book and sold 1 million copies. Okay? Do you understand why Bob Goff put his phone number in the back of his book? Because every time somebody calls Bob's phone number, he knows he's wanted. It's so core and so basic and so revelatory that you can look at Bob's life in terms of the work he does to bless thousands and thousands of people, how he's the most welcoming and kind and inclusive man I have ever met, and also understand his emotional need to feel included. Question 5, am I successful? And this is the need to win, contribute, and have status. Core fear of being seen as incompetent or underachieving. Your biggest kryptonite is failure. The idea of being a loser or not successful or underperforming, that is the thing that drives your life. That is the track underneath the water. Is that your primal question tonight? For many men it is. And this is basically people who have grown up in competitive homes where you were judged on your performance, your grades, how athletic you were you on the starting team, what were you doing, how were you doing? You were being judged and critiqued by your performance, and you wondered, am I successful as a kid? Mom and dad never really answered that, so you carry the question now into adult, and you keep trying to be a success, you keep trying to be a success, instead of listening to God that says you are already successful. I'm answering yes, yes, yes to that primal question. Question number 6, am I good enough? This is one of the most, I see this question pop up all the time in people. And people who have question number 6, am I good enough? This is just the need to be valued and affirmed for who they are. Their core fear is not being seen as flawed or imperfect. And their kryptonite is criticism. I want to light you up. I want to get you off your game. I want to get you angry. I want to get you scrambling. All I have to do is criticize you or judge you. And some of you are so tender around criticism, most likely what's happening is your primal question of am I good enough is being answered with a no or a maybe. Many people that I talk to around this question, they grew up in perfectionistic homes. They never felt like they were measuring up to whatever the standard was. They were being judged and critiqued for their appearance. Their family units were typically just structured in such a way that there was just no room to be less than average. That was never an option for you. So does this question drive your life? Do you keep asking your spouse, your boss, your friends? Are you asking even God, am I good enough? And you keep asking the question until we turn that question into a statement from am I good enough to I am good enough. That's where the freedom comes. Where you start leading yourself in truth because you know and I know you are loaded up with value. I had a friend who came to a workshop that I was doing, and their question was, am I good enough? And so often these individuals struggle with insecurity. They don't speak up. And she had been at the workshop for almost 2 full days until she finally shared her story about how her mom constantly criticized her, that she never measured up to her expectations. And so she carried this question, am I good enough, into her adult life. And it was just destroying her. Because when we offer that question to society, we give them control of whatever the answer might be instead of just self-answering or allowing God to answer it. And so she would get a no and a maybe and sometimes a yes. But one of the things that I love about her is that she is one of the most amazing people about providing value and valuing other people. She does this job where she goes to different towns where they decide whether they're going to close manufacturing plants or not. And she is basically the decision maker. And she came to this small town in West Virginia where they were kind of a wobbler. It could go either way. And because she valued people, again, she's putting her primal question, am I good enough, over all of those people in that town. And she wanted to answer it with a yes. And she literally saved that small town by keeping the plant open. She sees value in everybody, even the value that most of society might miss. She sees people and she calls out their value and she creates value. That is her primal gift. She no longer is living from that question. She's living from her primal truth. I am good enough, and she's demonstrating that gift into the world. Final question, do I have a purpose? Do I have a purpose? Some of you just have this incredible high emotional need for significance and impact. And your core fear is not making a difference. And your kryptonite is working on things that simply don't matter. Or if you're frustrated in your career right now, if you're frustrated in your life, if you're looking at the activities and the way you're spending your time and you feel like it's not making impact, your question might be, do I have a purpose? I have a friend who led a massive social justice campaign about 10 years ago. It was incredible. Beyonce, Angelina Jolie, Barack Obama, presidents, world leaders, the cause just blew up. Created this viral video for this social justice issue in Africa. And he was on cloud 9. It was incredible. He was so full of purpose and so full of impact, and his life was so incredibly significant. But then he had a mental health breakdown, and it all came crashing down for him. And he was in my office about a year ago, broken, lost. And he goes, Mike, I feel like my life has no purpose, that it has no significance. I mean, nobody cares about what I do anymore. I'm just kind of muddling around in these small projects and doing some design stuff. And I was, on cloud 9, and everybody knew my name, and I was on every television station and on every newspaper, and now I'm just this guy doing graphic arts for clients. And he was broken because his primal question was being answered with 1,000 no's. Your life has no purpose. And I said, hey, bud, we got to rethink this. We got to relook at this. Do you know that there hasn't been a single day in your life that hasn't been loaded up with purpose? Do you understand that whether you're raising your 2 kids or being a good husband or helping clients in small ways, that has incredible purpose? Now, yes, your purpose may look very different. And he just began to weep, began to cry, because that's the only thing that he wants. It is his highest emotional need, significance and purpose. And we had a conversation just about how to move that from a question to a statement, from do I have a purpose to I have a purpose. Man, I want you to think about tonight. What is your track? What is the thing that is driving you, that you're orienting all your energy and focus around? And if you can identify the question that is driving your life, which one is for you? Once I understood that my question is, am I safe? I could then live a life where I knew that I could create my own safety. You know, one of the problems was with my question was it was kid logic. See, when I was asking that question, I was this little skinny kid who couldn't protect myself. And now I'm a tall, slightly less skinny person who can, throw it down if need be. I don't have to live under the weight of the question. I don't have to keep asking it over and over again. I know that my God answers it with a yes, and I can remind myself that I am safe. You can remind yourself that you are secure. You can remind yourself that you are loved. You can remind yourself that you are wanted. You can remind yourself that you are successful. You can remind yourself that you are good enough. And you can remind yourself that you have a purpose. I pray that we look under the waters, that we see the track, and that we take action and we do something about what's underneath the water. Let's bow our heads in prayer. God, thank you for who you are and showing up in our deepest emotional need. God, help us to understand that you are inviting us into a radical life. And God, we don't have to get entangled by the questions, but that we can live in your truth. God, help us to be proactive in giving away our gifts that have been birthed in pain. God, that we give away the strengths and the fortitude that you have placed inside of us because of our brokenness. God, help us to be men who live not afraid, but with great purpose. That we live in our value. That we don't have to prove anything anymore. We know that we are your sons and you are our Father, and that we are part of your family, and you have a good story for us to step into tonight. It's in your Son's name we pray, and all of God's people said.